Did he say that? Was that an off-the-cuff? You were in the chamber. Was this an off-the-cuff remark, or was this scripted in? And if it was scripted in, or even if perhaps it was off-the-cuff, what was the motive behind that sentiment?
I think it will still be a reality, and even if he's not the one who is able to see the future, as you are not, and you are not, and you are not, and I'm not, I think lots of people in Europe see that what happens with the Brexit decision will lead us all to a point where we see that united Europe with 28 member states would have been the better choice than one with the 27. And even UK will see that it's not as easy as lots of the politicians in UK think that it will be. And I think his sentence would be even better, would have been even better if he would have said, we already regret the Brexit today, but you in UK will regret it tomorrow.
What was the reaction in the chamber, from your perspective? Was there a wide consensus, the mood of it, agreeing with Mr. Juncker's statement that the majority of people agree that the UK will regret it?
A very broad majority,
yeah.
No doubt about it.
And you would agree with the statement as well that the UK will regret it, the UK will be worse off?
100%. 100%. And I'm sorry to say, this has nothing to do with saying, oh, okay, you made a wrong decision, now you have to live with it, ha, ha, ha. No, it's not about this.
And is that all-inclusive? Is that sort of monetarily, less freedom of movement, less open Britain?
Frankfurt gets 10,000 working places, which are at the moment situated in London. Frankfurt in Germany is happy about these 10,000 white-collar bankers' working places. But sorry, what does the city say about this? Well, so we see in lots of fields that lots of other countries profit, and I'm sorry for UK that it suffers from this.
Stephen,
I worked in the City of London for 18 years. The city was divided between those in fund management and insurance and private equity who supported leaving the European Union. Some of the major bankers, of which, of course, you can look at Deutsche Bank, supported it because there were different reasons for doing so. We have a much more entrepreneurial spirit. Yep. The very fact that we say that we'd be isolated from Europe, I think, is wrong. The fact that we will deteriorate in financial services is also going to be wrong. Of course, I understand there now will be pressures within the German kind of banking community to bring back some of those jobs from Deutsche Bank. But the reality is, even yesterday, we had the chart that shows which is the #1 financial institution city in the world. Again, London had it. We retained it. But not only that, we gained ground whilst everybody else fell behind us. And the reason why is that we have such a nexus of people, from not just banking and insurance and lawyers and accountants and IT and high tech. We have a population that is working around this, but we're international. The vast majority of our financial services trade isn't with Europe. And that is where the difference becomes. If you look at the French and German banking kind of scenarios, it is much more about feeding that part of the European Union, whereas we're feeding all over. And don't forget, we've just won the Chinese contract on the renminbi as well. So we'll be strong going forward.
Yeah. Also, the whole decision about Brexit was not really about the finances and the economy. As far as I was concerned, it was about Britain being an independent country, getting back control and making our own decisions. Now, just in there, a little bit later on, we were talking about relations with India and European Union trying to build that. As an independent country, we've got links with India through the Commonwealth and with many other countries, so we can build our own future. And that's important. But to come back to your original question, no, I think it was very much off the cuff. He started by saying from his speech that he thought Brexit was a mistake. There was then a heckle from the UKIP benches, which I didn't catch, which was then he then spun round and said, no, you are going to regret it.
So it was a reference directly to the MEP,
that's
UKIP
how
MEPs.
I saw it. That's how I saw it. And I think, as with so many of these off-the-cuff remarks, it reveals far more about someone's underlying beliefs than the scripted text does.
Well, let's look at, you mentioned it already, but he also mentioned in terms of trade and business, the success of the European Union in terms of the European Investment Plan, and spoke as well of Mexico, South America, Australia, New Zealand as areas for possible trade deals in the future. In terms of that and making the European Union industry stronger and more competitive, as he put it, Peter, I mean, do you think that was put in as well as a little signal to the UK that the EU is expanding and becoming more global as well in terms of the economy, in terms of business, and the UK perhaps might be the worse off for it when people like Japan, people like Australia perhaps, or South America prioritise them, the bigger market, over the UK?
On the one hand, it's important for the European Union to be a strong partner in the world and to bring our trade relations with other countries in the world or other regions in the world on a strong basis. This is one thing. But to be honest, and I don't want to hurt you, it has nothing to do with the Brexit. The Brexit is discussed in Britain very high. In the German election campaign, for example, where it's fought really hard at the moment. Do you think that anyone cares about Brexit? No. And this means also for the trade sector. If you think that someone in the European industry and the German industry thinks that we should come to rules that the UK has also in the future the same chances on our common market than before, you're wrong. Because the most important for us is to be strong, united to the inside, also for the industry, to have one common market in the inside and have a clear basis for our relations to the outside. And this is, I think, what Juncker underlined, that this Commission is willing to come up with new trade agreements which helps and strengthen the European industry. But I think he didn't think lots about Brexit when he talked about this.
But in terms of a race to the trade deals, who's going to be out of the EU and of the UK in terms of when trade negotiations? Do you think the EU is going to be far more attractive to businesses, to countries, to secure a trade deal above the UK? And the UK is, as has been slung around before, will be at the back of the queue out of the two.
No, but sorry, if you're out, and we have to negotiate all our trade unions. Out is out, and then we start as we start with Canada, or as we started with New Zealand or Australia. With Canada, we finalized it. It took years. I don't know what UK politician thinks how it should be with UK. Do you think you get special rules, special negotiations? No, this would be not the case. And I'm sorry to say so. I'm not happy to say so. This is a very, very difficult way that you decided to go to, and a long way too.
But the European Union is notoriously bad at trade negotiations. They drag on much longer than they do with any independent state, because the negotiators have to please 28, or it's going to be 27 different national interests. They have to go back and refer back to the centre every time they want to make a concession. They are notoriously so bad at doing it. Smaller independent countries, New Zealand is perhaps the prime example of this, but I hope very much Britain will do this as well. Can be much more nimble on their feet, can get deals nailed down much quicker, because they've only got one set of interests to bother about, and without having to go back and deal with so many people. Negotiators can make concessions and do deals much quicker and much better than a great behemoth like this.
The biggest problem about trade deals is often more about the regulatory rules regimes in each of them. What Peter is actually saying very clearly is something that I've been watching here, is that there is almost an idea of fortress Europe. We have built our circle of nations in here, and these are our rules, and in order to come in, you've got to abide by those rules. And one of the reasons why there has been a decline in terms of things such as productivity, GDP, and a rise of unemployment is that when you get into that mindset, you lose flexibility, which enables, and you get the single idea that there's a single rule regime. Now, we're seeing lots of research that says that idea, which was a predominant idea of the early 1900s, that everything has to be the same, is actually causing decline in investment, in terms of new ideas, in innovation. And the large organisations fail to achieve that. What I think will happen with Britain is that we've always been a quite entrepreneurial idea. Once we're freed from the kind of static rules, we'll be able to look around and diverge. And divergence is exactly what Barnier said to the meeting of the MEPs last night. I believe we'll have competition between ourselves and the European Union, and that will benefit both in the long run.
Okay.